Hey, poker peeps, this is Sky with Smart Poker Study, and you're about to watch a two-table focus session where I ask and answer a question before every decision. The goal with doing this is to get myself to think about all the information available so that I can make the best decision possible. The best fold, the best call, the best raise, the best bet, whatever it might be at the time. Now, this was originally given to my Patreon supporting audience. But now that I don't do Patreon anymore, I figured this would be a great one to show my YouTube audience. So thank you so much for subscribing to the channel and dinging that bell, giving this video a thumbs up as well. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you on the inside. So let's get this show on the road. So thank you very much once again for your Patreon support through November. Now, this video is all about I'm playing a two-table focus session where I'm going to be thinking about all the various questions that kind of occur to me, the things that help me to make really good decisions, hopefully really good decisions as I'm playing my sessions. So what I did is I have a list of questions right over here to the left of the screen. And as we're playing, I'll discuss each of these questions, but at opportune times when I have one of these moments, you know, we'll hit a specific question. So I'm not really going to be going in order. I'll start off at the very top, and as situations occur, we might bounce around for these various things. And then the goal is to cover each of these questions and then to also cover how I answer each of the questions as well. Because just telling you the questions, it's not going to really help you if I just cover questions and not go over my thought process when I'm trying to answer said questions. So as you can see here now, we have two different tables, a 25 NL and a 10 NL, both 6 max, of course, full table, so we're kind of lucky right now. Man, sometimes this early in the morning, Carbon Poker doesn't have any full tables, or they only have one and you can't get on it because the other players aren't leaving. But we got lucky. 1 ACR, 1 Carbon here, so things are looking up. Now, we'll start with the questions first, or just my general questions. And these just apply to just playing poker, just playing your sessions. The first is, what is my session focus? Now, I've talked about it plenty of times. As you're studying various topics and you're working to build certain skills into your game, you need to have a focus when you play your sessions. Because if you study 3 bets one day, but then you play that session later the night and you don't even think about 3 bets, all you're doing is playing your normal game, are you really learning what you try, or are you really ingraining the skills that you studied off the felt earlier in the day? Probably not, right? So now here's a good, let me see. He does not like to fold the steal so much. He doesn't fold that often. I've got 2 players, neither one 3 bets a ton. I think this is a good spot to steal. So is this steal going to work? I don't necessarily think it's going to work all the time. And then look at that. We got a 3 better right here. Oh, and then a call. So we're definitely folding. Now, I don't think that steal is going to work often enough just to make the steal profitable. But the goal was, look how loose passive this player is. He's a 42-15. He's going to be making a lot of pre-flop calls and, you know, allowing us, hopefully, when we raise, everyone else folds and we isolate that player. So no, it's not, the steal's probably not going to work. But it does work in that hopefully I get into a bread and butter situation against that one out of position, loose passive player. All right. So we see some limpers here. This is generally not a hand I like to ISO with. Oh, he must have left the table and come back because he wasn't here with such a big stack before. This is interesting. So we have a super loose passive player with a decent sized 3-bet in position with a humongous stack. So he probably, you know, he was up 2 buy-ins, left the table, took a break, and now he's back again, which is good for us. I mean, when the loose passive players have a lot of chips, that gives us a good profit-making potential. The only downside is he's in position on us. But if we kind of play with good ranges, oh, whoops. As you can see, he doesn't like to fold to cbets on the flop 44, on the turn 33%. So this is the kind of player, I mean, he folds most of the time on the river at 56%. So if I'm going to bluff against him, it's got to be a triple barrel bluff, or potentially a bluff with a lot of equity to it, like a good flush draw plus a gut shot kind of thing. Let's come in here for the steal. Now, this was our prior 3-better. We did have the big stack, but we do have position on him. He folds a decent amount on the flop. So we are going to make the steal c-bet here kind of a hard flop to hit. And with that one would be like, will they fold to a cbet? Looking at his stats, yeah, 55% of the time he folds. So let's go back up to the top here. Some general questions. What is my session focus? So what I decided for this session was to focus on this question. What is the most important thought here? Now, honestly, you haven't heard me ask it yet, but let's ask it right now. The most important thought here is, am I going to get 3-bet? Because I'm probably going to have to fold versus a 3-bet if I do choose to open this pot. Tight, tight, tight. I don't see a lot of 3-betters, so let's go ahead and open the pot. We'll just do it for a half pot. Excuse me, early morning frog in the throat. So what's the most important thought here? Am I going to face a 3-bet? Most likely not, unless somebody wakes up with a good hand, which is good for us. If we get any callers, great, we have an ace and a jack. But if we don't face any 3-betters, we're going to get to the flop, in this case right now, as you can see, in position as the pre-flop raiser, unless he decides to 3-bet with his short stack. Oh, and we stole it. So that is my session focus. What's the most important thought here? And up in the top corner right there, if you click that button right now, you'll go to a video where that entire video was just me discussing that. Now, will this deal work here? I think it will quite often. He's raising a min raise out of the small blind. We have an ace blocker. Yep. All right, so I'm going to bold it once I kind of discuss it. What's my session focus? And for this session, what is the most important thought here? This is something that I learned, if you watch that video up above, this is something I learned from Alex Fitzgerald. If you constantly ask yourself this question, for every decision you have to make, your mind is going to be searching for the most important thing every decision, If I don't know, there are so many things to think about in a hand. Like, for example, right here, I was dealt queen jack offsuit. I could just focus on queen jack offsuit. Is this a good hand worth opening? Maybe that's a good question. But a better question might be, is this a great spot to steal the pot? Can I open this hand under the gun and expect to make money with it? Those might be better questions than just, should I play queen jack off? Ha, queen jack off. Love it, love it. 10-3 off, just going to fold. 8-10, he does like to raise a lot. It is a min raise. We need less than, 20% equity. Right? To win 45, 10, a little over 20% equity. We are going to make the call right here. Play him out of position. But we'll see. It was just a min raise. We can let him bluff right here. I could definitely call 2 streets, unless he makes it really big. Because we just don't really know enough about the player. He is a loose aggressive pre-flop, so there's not a guarantee he hit top pair here. Our second pair may be best. So we're going to check call that one. Not a fan of the overcard, but at the same time, it gives us a little bit more equity with a gut shot. I'm going to call again. Once again, half pot right there. And the 7 doesn't complete any draws at all. Yeah, I'm just going to check. Hopefully he was just bluffing, and he checks behind, and we win it with our 8. Oh, he did have a queen. Shame. That's okay, though. Ace deuce, we're definitely going to open if it comes to us versus this nit. So we ask those questions. Okay, is this a profitable table? Now, this is always a great question to ask because unprofitable tables, life is, like I've said in the podcast before, life is too short to play at unprofitable tables. Now, this is the only 3-better so far. I'm hoping he doesn't 3-bet us. We are under the gun right here. Good, he just called. Yeah, so you want to play at profitable tables for sure. He folds a decent amount. I'm going to size it a little bit bigger to convince him to fold his under pairs if he did call with 7 or 8s instead of 3-betting there. And it worked. So getting back to, is this a profitable table? Loose passive, loose aggressive, and I have position on him. Let's give him the orange tag. I'm not going to ISO with ace 4 off. I think it's time to bet to just take it down. Hopefully, if they have 2 overcards like king, queen, unless they're like diamonds or hearts, that's a really good opportunity to fold right there. We were just in the big blind. Big blind special could have hit 2 pair right there, So they showed weakness on the prior street. I think it was time to raise. Anyway, so loose, passive, loose. This guy's pretty loose passive. He does like to 3-bet. This is one of those interesting guys. Let's take a look at his. I'm going to classify him green because you can see he plays 27% of hands. Only 1/3 of the time, 33% of his time, 33% of his hands does he come in for the raise. So because of that, I'm going to give him the green tag. Even though he does have a high 3-bet. Let's take a look at it here. As a total, 6.3, so it's 12 out of 189. It's pretty active right there. He uses the small blind, and maybe the cutoff are his bluffing opportunities. It is a smallish sample, but we just have to be aware that he likes to 3-bet, so we've got to pay attention to that. And when he's still in the hand, or when he still has the option to act, we got to be aware. This guy, I mean, so far, how many times has he limped? 2 out of 3, 67%. Yeah, so this is, we got a loose aggressive here, short stacker, tight, tight, tight aggressive. Let's come in for the raise here. King Jack is not the best of hands, but some of these players could call with weaker kings, King 10, Queen Jack, Jack 10, weaker holdings than us. And then hopefully we isolate this short stacked player, loose aggressive, hit something good, and get some value. Now, if anybody decided, you know, with a hand like King Jack, if they decided to just fold it outright in the EP and MP, that's totally fine. I fold it quite often, those hands. He folds 50% of the time. I think this definitely deserves another bet. I think he can call with a couple of clubs. He can call with a weaker king as well that might fold to this double barrel. Not that I want him to fold to the double barrel, but he could also call with those weaker kings, giving me value right there. And I think at that point, with the size of his stack, if he really liked his hands, he would have raised on the turn, allowing me to get rid of it easily. And betting the flop and turn in position allows me to often check behind the river on an unfavorable river card. So this guy's definitely loose passive, likes to limp so much, playing with a... Wait, was he playing with a short stack? I don't remember his stack size. No, whatever. Doesn't matter now. But we are going to give him the green tag, so the next time we encounter him, we know. I see no reason to bet right here. Let this big stack... completed a draw. Actually made a lot of draws too. Ace, king, jack of diamonds is going to be staying in here. So at that point, you know, betting the flop is not a bad idea. But what do I do if I face any slack right there? I guess betting could be kind of a blocking bet, allowing me to get to showdown a little bit cheaper, especially if he folds and he calls. So I think this is a profitable table, green, 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 and an orange, which I'm in position on for sure. Now, this is a profitable table as well because the players who have position on me are all pretty tight. He's the most tight aggressive player, but tight aggressive as well. Loose aggressive, who I kind of have position on. And the other lag at the table, I have position on as well. So things are looking up. Isolating a player. Let's see what his ISO percentage... Whoops, wrong button. His isolation percentage is only 15%. He's not a super frequent ISO bluffer. Anything over 20% is a frequent ISO bluffer right there. All right. Ooh, nice. Oh, gosh. Just going to fold the 9-4. Alrighty, so I think both tables right now are profitable, and that's one of the things. If they were both unprofitable, let's say if these two players, loose aggressives, were to my direct left and the nits were here, then it might not be a table worth playing at because they might put a lot of pressure on me, which I'd rather be the one putting pressure on the lags or being in position on them so they can spew chips and I can call down with my top pair, second pair kind of hands. Let's see, who are the value targets? Well, it's very simple. Anybody who's a value target for me is a green player. So the loose passive players are the #1 value targets. #2 value targets would be the loose aggressive players, but against them, I often have to play a little bit on the snugger side of things. Hopefully hit the flop a little bit better so I can get value from them, either from their bluffs or I can be betting at them. Now, see, this is interesting. Adkins right now, this is the second or third time they've 3-bet me. So I definitely need to, even though he's loose passive, he does like to 3-bet. So I'm going to change his color to an orange to help me, to alert me to that fact. And we'll also make a note on him in just a sec. Gosh darn. Okay, that's something I've got to remember. So now what I'm going to do is when he is yet to act still, I'm going to open up a tighter range now because I think that's the third 3-bet. So I've got to start planning and adjusting for it. He's not going to think that I'm going to start adjusting too soon. So it's a good opportunity for me to tighten up my range. And that kind of goes with this question here. Who should I avoid playing? Now, there's no players here that I should really avoid playing, but what I do need to do is, like you just saw, I need to think about restricting my range when Adkins still has the option to act. And I shouldn't be opening like with a hand like 7-9 offsuit, even though I would have rivered a straight there. Because I'm automatically going to fold to most of his 3-bets. And if he's targeting me with, very nice hand. And if he's targeting me with 3-bets, I'm just making a bad choice by opening hands I know I'm going to fold. Actually, don't fold. So another good question, is this steal going to work? And we've discussed that before. Now, if it folds to me, this is a really good opportunity because he's super tight, super nitty. After 35 hands, he's only played, 6% would be 2 out of 35. Not much at all. Loose aggressive player. I'd rather 3-bet steal with some kind of a blocking hand at a minimum. Suited, but blocking as well. Some kind of an ace or a king suited hand right there. Especially because we haven't seen how he reacts to 3-bets yet. Make my own 3-bet with, it is an offsuit ace, not the best of hands, but he does fold a decent amount of time. So that was, will they fold to a 3-bet right there? So what often happens is that kind of play right there. I recognize that he folds a lot to 3-bets. So how do I say? If you were just, and you are watching this video, if you watch this video and see me 3-bet and you think to yourself, oh, he 3-bet and then he looked at the fold to 3-bet sat. No. What I've done is I've trained myself when I face an open and I have a potential 3-betting hand, automatically my eye just kind of goes to that fold to 3-bet instance right there. Not instance, fold to 3-bet stat. So before I make this one, because I was talking, I haven't looked, haven't seen any folds, doesn't like to fold that often. This is really good sizing as well right here. I like it, making it 15 big blinds as a 3-bet versus 2 players. Hopefully we can get somebody to commit, maybe make them, because it's a larger size, they'll think I'm bluffing. Maybe I can get max value out of this short stacker. He might decide, and he didn't, he might decide to 4-bet bluff us, which would have been killer, with like ace 4 offsuit kind of a hand. Well, you know. One of the interesting things about that hand is you should never look down at a pot you win, right? Sure, pocket kings, I could have stacked somebody, I could have gotten everything if I just made a smaller raise. It's possible. Oh, I do want to isolate this player. But you really should never look down at a hand that you win, especially like if you take a look at your, what did I win? 1, 2, 4, 5.5 big blinds. If I, pretty nice, pretty interesting spot. I'll check that 5.5 big blind idea. He folds 60%, but I really want to get value. I'm going to bet, gosh darn it, I'm going to bet a smaller amount to make it look like I'm bluffing. Hopefully he comes in with a raise. If he just calls, great. I mean, I'm getting value with my straight. That's awesome. Whoops. Oh, we're facing a 3-bet. Okay, I'm just going to fold. 13 hands, or 8 hands, 13-0, first 3-bet. We'll let that one pass. So earlier I was talking about 5.5 big blinds. On that hand with the pocket kings, he made it 2, 2. We also had 1 big blind and a half a big blind here. That was 5.5 big blinds to win from the 3-bet. If I look at my database for pocket kings, over my lifetime, if I remember right, I'm roughly 6 or 7 big blinds per hand positive. Right there with that simple 3-bet, I won almost what I've been making on average, right? 5.5 big blinds. So that was actually a good result with pocket kings. It's right earning just about what I make on average with that hand. For my database, pocket aces makes 10 big blinds per hand on average. And that counts all the times when you lose a full stack and all the times when you win a full stack and the times when you win just a blind and a half. You know, everything in between, 10 big blinds per hand. So But the interesting thing is pocket queens. If I remember right, pocket queens wins me between 4 and 5 big blinds per hand. Right there with that pocket kings with a simple 3-bet. I won more than I win on average with queens. So if that would have been pocket queens and I won 5.5 big blinds, that's more than I normally win. I should be stoked by that. So don't look down on a pot when you that you actually win, you know. Let's see. Who are the value targets? We talked about that. Anybody in green and the orange players, especially if you're in position on them. Those orangey players. Okay, am I playing my A game? This is a really good question. Sometimes I forget to ask this. You know, I'm tired, I'm annoyed, I'm frustrated, and I keep playing anyway. That's pretty obvious that I didn't ask myself this question, because if I'm not playing my A game, I should, at a minimum, take a break, step away from the table, do some push-ups, do some pull-ups, drink some water, whatever. Do something to try to get myself in A game mindset. One of the things that helps me stay in A game mindset is like talking to you right now, talking to the audience, actually going through and what is it called? Giving my reasons for every single play I make. Now, I made this hand. Pocket nines is definitely, it's fine for calling for set mining purposes. But if I call, I'm telling him I don't have aces, kings, queens, jacks, or even ace, king. I'm just calling your min raise. I'm telling him I have like pocket threes or 6, 7 suited. When the flop comes an ace or a king high, he's just going to fire. If I don't hit my set, I'm folding. So by 3-betting right there, I'm giving myself a really good opportunity to just take down the pot right now. I'm also keeping my range really high, or my range full of strong hands. And I also give myself the opportunity to c-bet on the flop. And if I hit a straight, if I hit a set after he continues, then I have an opportunity to make even more money. So 3-betting with nines is good. Oh, another bonus. I didn't know up until that point how he's going to respond to 3-bets. And now he folded. So I'm getting a little bit of a read on him. But we're going to take a look. We're going to see if we can't find some instances where he makes a 3 big blind or bigger raise, because I've only been seeing min raises right now. And maybe that's his way of just trying to save money on his bluffs, you know. But orange, because he's a 50-39 super laggy. I could probably give this guy a red. Be in the knit. Red it up. And red basically just means a nit player. So if they come in for a raise or a 3-bet, I've got to watch out. But a red is also a green light to steal from them. So that's one reason why this is a good position to be in, or a good table to be in. With the nit right here, I can probably steal most of his big blinds and most of his small blinds. I can probably also raise a lot in the cutoff and steal position. Steal the button. Let's see. So play my A game. Yep. And then if you take that 5-minute break, try to get back to the tables and find that things are just going crappy for you, you're still not in your A game, just end the session right there. Yeah, so that's why this question is so important. And all of these questions are important. I'm basically trying to think about these questions all the time. Like if you took this list, printed it up, and attached it to your monitor and constantly, that could be a session focus. Constantly think about Sky's questions, you know, and for every decision, find a question that is applicable to it and then answer that question as best you can. So preflop, what situation am I getting myself into? Now, I haven't asked this one yet. It's always in the background, so we'll go over in a second. Great, so if I decide to open here, what situation am I getting myself into? Well, I'm open raising with a bottom 5% hand, maybe bottom 8% hand, against a guy who does not like to fold, and he doesn't like to fold on the flop either, or the turn. So I'm putting myself, if I raise right there, in a really bad situation. My steal's not likely to work. I'm not likely to hit anything good, and I'm not likely to steal the pot unless I make a triple barrel bluff. So that is the kind of situation you don't want to get into. If I call, what kind of situation am I getting myself into? Well, I call. If he doesn't 3-bet, he's calling. It gives him a really good, he's been 3-betting me. It gives him a really good opportunity to 3-bet squeeze. So it's a terrible situation to be in. If I call, I'm just folding. Sure, I have position on the flop, but that's all I've got. It's a 9-10 offsuit. 9-10 offsuit ain't worth playing in a multi-way pot. No way, Jose. 9-10 suited might be a different story if all of these guys were green and didn't like to 3-bet. Oh, his 3-bet's at 6%. Small blind. Okay, so this is interesting. It's only 179 hands, but so far, what we can gather from these stats is that boy Troy likes to 3-bet bluff out of the MP, the cutoff, and the small blind. So as of right now, if we face a 3-bet from him from the button or from the big blind, it's very likely a value hand, you know. See, that could have been a steal hand. A lot of people would steal that, but we were up against the guy who's been 3-betting us. So no thank you. We shall look for another opportunity. Okay, who are the likely 3-bettors? Now, we've been answering this the whole time, even though I haven't addressed the question yet. At this table, not so likely. Look at only 3%. Loose aggressive when it comes to just V-pipping and pre-flop raising as a total. Actually, let's look at his raise first in stats. 4 deuce. 21, 21, 21, 55. I've never... That is crazy. He plays the same 21% range from everything but the cutoff. And the button in the small blind or when he starts to increase his ranges. Oh, king, queen, jack. Darn, nobody raised, but this is the kind of board that most players don't bluff at. Now, we are throwing out the bluff here with the backdoor flush draw. That's all we really had. Yeah, king, queen, jack, rainbow board. That's the kind that I think he folds often enough. $1 bet half pot. We only need to fold roughly 30% of the time. Yeah, so we'll just make the bet here. Bluffing at it. Hopefully he doesn't have a jack. Hopefully he just had a 10, or even if he has a jack, he might fold. And he folded. Lovely. So king, queen, jack. Let me see. Patreon, you guys are seeing this video. Well, yeah, this is the episode. King, queen, jack was the episode 211. That episode 211 where I had the second interview with Peter Carruthers Clark. And king, queen, jack was the board where most of our opponents, the regs at the stakes, they are not bluffing enough at that board. Because it looks too scary. Even with their like ace jack, they have showdown value plus a gut shot, so they might not be betting at it. So king, queen, jack's a really good flop. And my guess is right there. As you can see, he folds mostly on the rivers. It took that final third barrel to get him to fold. He could have had like an underpair and just didn't want to believe us and was just going to call down. That's why such a loose passive player can develop big stacks sometimes, because they make plays like that. Oh, that's right, too. The podcast, the Patreon podcast this week, I think it was the prior hand. Great. So the Patreon podcast is going to be about, and by the time you're watching this, you might have already heard the podcast. It's going to be about isolating limpers, and not just isolating, but just profiting from limpers is what it is. Because it's really easy just to tell you to isolate. You just make it 6 big blinds, piece of cake. No. Telling you how to profit from limpers. Now, we were up against 2 limpers right here who normally, these guys like to isolate themselves. Let's take a look at their percentages. 8%. Maybe he doesn't like to ISO so much. This guy? 8%. Oh, wow, they don't like to ISO. Well, if they don't like to ISO, interesting. They just limped instead. So, because they don't like to ISO, they ISO with value hands. The fact that they limped means they had weak hands. So, most likely, these 2 were going to fold to that 8 big blind ISO. Now, these 2 right here, they were going to fold too, because cold calling or cold 3-betting versus 8 big blind isolation raise, it's kind of difficult for a lot of players to do. So that $2 bet right here versus we were in the small. Oh, we had 3 limpers, so he started the limping madness. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that was a really good opportunity for us to take down a really simple pot. As you can see with that isolation raise, I made 1, 2, 3, 4.5 big blinds from it. Lovely. So that's the kind of thing in the podcast I'm going to be discussing. So yeah, once again, who are the likely 3-bettors? Be aware of it, and if necessary, adjust your open raising ranges when they are still to act. Now, how will they approach the flop? This is a very good question that I ask, especially when I'm thinking about calling pre-flop. because if I open right now and he's going to call, I might not even actually think how is he going to approach the flop. I'm the pre-flop raiser. I'm just basically going to look at the cbet fold to cbet stats. But when I'm thinking about calling somebody's open raise or calling their 3-bet or higher, I really want to think about how they approach the flop, because I'm calling. I have a weaker range now. They were the raiser. They have a stronger range. They have a bigger incentive to be c-betting, whether for value or as a bluff. So I really want to know how they're going to approach the flop. Or I don't want to know. I want to think about how they're going to do it, how they're going to approach it, so that I can start planning for it. I also want to think about how they're going to approach it based on their position, whether they're in position or out of position. So let's take a look at oh, he left. Adkins left. But let's look at his c-bet now. Oh, let's raise here to ISO this guy. Folds a decent amount of... Well, that worked too. Well, let's just look at his stats then. C-betting. In 3-bet pots, c-betting in position... Oh, 0 out of 2. What's that? 1 out of 2? That's too small of a sample. Okay, we can look at this c-betting. So... just the regular c-bet, in position 43%, out of position 37%. He's much more honest when he's making the c-bet when out of position. That's good to note. Now you could see here, it's a small sample, 2 out of 5 and maybe 2 out of 3, 4 out of 6, come on. 2 out of 3, yeah, it's a really small sample, but most likely his 3-betting tendencies, his c-betting tendencies in 3-bet pots, they're probably going to mimic the 2-bet pots. So most likely, Aka here, he is more honest when out of position. So if I'm thinking about calling a 3-bet, especially if I don't have the strongest of hands, I might want to do it when I'm in position, mostly, 24-14, King 9, I'm not going to call that hand. It's generally not a hand I like to call. We don't know that much about the player. Maybe it's getting up there, loose aggressive now, but he's got position on me. Most likely he's going to be firing at the flop and the turn, and I didn't have a great hand. Not generally a hand I like to call with. I don't mind at all isolating this player again. We'll see what happens. I think he called once before against me. Oh, that's right. He called and I threw out a bluff. Doesn't like to raise fold that often. I don't have the best of blocking hands. I block pocket kings and ace king, pocket jacks as well, but and I'm out of position versus a lag. I'd rather have a better hand if I'm 3-bet re-stealing versus a lag. Now this is interesting. Call time on seat. Makes them play the table or yeah, leave the seat or play cards. Interesting. How long has he been gone, though? It's only been here for a couple, not even a full round, my guess. We'll just leave it. But we shall open raise there, and we will hear, if he calls, which we're expecting a call most of the time, he's calling, well, that happens. He's calling with kings and queens that we're ahead of, so I'm totally fine calling, raising there. Now, stealing here, what's going to happen? We might get 2 calls or just a fold and a call, or a call and a fold, but either way, we're in position with a king versus, oh, I'm going to fold that, versus loose passive players. So it's a good spot to be in for sure. That's a bummer. Now, one thing that we took a look at is 3-betting before, and if I remember right, he 3-bets out of the cutoff, MP cutoff, and small blind, right? Yeah, so this is a cutoff, but it's on the larger size. Look how big that is. It could be totally for value. So I'm just going to fold that one there. Come on, show it. Show me your value hand. Oh. So maybe he might be, just like he was, choosing to 3-bet against me. Yeah, no. All right. How will they approach the flop? We talked about that. Let's see. Will they fold to a c-bet? We discussed that as I was making some c-bets and everything. But the first thing that you're going to do to answer this question, will they fold to a c-bet? 2 things. First, are they in position or out of position? Out of position, more likely to fold, especially after they check and show that little bit of weakness right there. Also, you want to look at their fold to c-bet stats. So those are the 2 things. Pay attention to their relative position and their c-bet stats. Oh, look at this pot grow. Trips. Nice. And just an ace-10 2 pair, which was better than the aces and 8s with a king kicker possibly, So I can understand that call right there. But he folds 57% of the time. It makes sense that he's calling with 2 pair there, as opposed to just calling with the top pair hand. Okay, so what size do I need to make it? You heard me thinking about that one sizing when I made it $1 to $1.40 pot. So you just want to consider what size is going to get your opponent to fold. The more passive they are, the more willing they are to call. So you might have to make it a little bit bigger. But up to a point, there's a point when you're up against a player who's not going to fold no matter what, and you just get the sense that they're not going to fold. Maybe the only way to get them to fold is to shove, but do you really want to risk all those chips? That's something that you got to decide. You got to think about. But somebody called time on him, 471 seconds. Nice. But that's something that you just need to think about when you're deciding to bluff. How much do you need to bluff? Cool. I am going to 4-bet versus this. I was expecting a cbet. He was thinking about it. He was contemplating it. That's why I was happy seeing this right here and that with that hand. Okay, so I haven't hit any super strong hands, right? The other day, I did this in a video on Tuesday. I flopped a flush. When you flop a big hand, you've got to think, how am I going to get max value out of it? If you're up against a loose passive player, you've got to start betting, even if it's the scariest of flops. I can't remember what I had. I might have flopped a king high flush, and he had a 7 high flush that he flopped as well. But I didn't know he had a flush, of course, at the time. I'm not going to set mine there. I didn't know he had a flush at the time. But I knew he was a loose passive player, so I had to bet and just hope he had the ace of hearts or the queen of hearts, because I think I had the king of hearts. I had to hope that he had a heart or he had a pair that he just wasn't willing to fold against my flush. But that's one of the ways, that is one of the ways to start getting value. You've got to start betting to build up that pot up for sure. But just think about it, when you hit top set or bottom set and you're out of position after calling preflop, how are you going to get this player to commit extra chips? Do you have to check, check and then call their cbet, or check and then raise because they hate folding raises or folding their cbets to raises? You just got to figure out what's going to get you the most value. Now, this is the kind of question that I wish I had to ask myself more often. But as you know, you don't hit super strong flops all that often at all. Less than 10% of the time do you hit. 2 pair of bettors, less than 6% of the time or something. I wish I had more opportunities to ask myself that question. What does that showdown hand tell me? Now, I love this question. If you're multi-tabling, it might be pretty darn tough to really look at a hand, try to think back through the action to figure out what it tells you. But at a time like this, when you're just 2-tabling, you can be paying attention to every showdown hand, seeing that they had 7-8 when they limped in preflop. Great, 7-8's in their limping range. If 7-8 is, 7-6, maybe even 6-5 is in their limping range as well. If those are in, 10-8, especially suited, might be in their limping range, So seeing those showdowns give you an indication. Oh, look at that flop. Give you an indication to what they're capable of doing, or what other hands they're capable of making that same play with. And also showdowns tell you a ton on bet sizing. So pay attention to showdowns as much as possible, especially if you're multi-tabling. Now, what does this play from this player mean? Occasionally, I'll flop like a top pair hand, and I'll c-bet it. And then all of a sudden, a player like this decides to check raise. Or a player like this, Italian Stromboli, decides to check raise. Now, he's super loose aggressive. A check raise from him probably means something really different than a check raise from such a loose passive player, right? So when you're facing a play, sure, check raises in general are strong plays, but some players might use them as a bluffing opportunity. And you've got to think, why is this player making this play right now? Let's see if we can't dive in a little further here. Loose aggressive, we've got a ton of 825 hands. So when they're out of position, check raise a c-bet 0% out of 19 opportunities. If this guy check raises, he has, at a minimum, a top pair, top kicker, but possibly 2 pair or better. Now let's see if we can't find another aggressive player who maybe we've seen some check raises. 6%, that's on the value side. Oh, check raise c-bet 33. It's only 1 out of 3 though, right? Yeah, so when you are 679 check raise c bet 0%. Wow. Okay. Well, it looks like right now most of these players are pretty check raise honest. But occasionally, and you know this, you'll find a player that loves using the check raises as bluffs. Against them, you've got to at least consider the fact that they might have a bluff and then make your decision based on that. And there's all different kinds of factors. What does this play from this player mean? Look at their stats, look at their player type. Also think about their bet sizing that they're using. A min check raise could be for value or for a bluff, but 1.5, 2x, 3x not min check raise, a 3x check raise, very likely for value. What weaknesses does this player have? Now, this is something that I look at pre-flop and post-flop, but I put it on the post-flop section right here because, oh, nice. I just because I put it there, it could have been under the pre-flop section for what weaknesses. But basically, when you're thinking about getting involved with an opponent, and actually, this can be the kind of question that when you're asking these general questions up here. If a certain player strikes you as, so relatively unknown. Oh, this player, I've played a lot with him, 826 hands. What are his weaknesses? And I have position on him. What are his weaknesses that I can take advantage of when I'm in position? Great questions to ask. And of course, the email with this video is going to contain this this Word document right here. So you'll have these questions. And like I said earlier, what I recommend is play a session, constantly ask yourself these questions. See how many times you can go back and forth from your decision to the question, get an answer, make a selection, or make a decision, you know. Oh, what street are they honest on? I love this question. So like we were talking about earlier, was I talking about that? I think I was, yeah. I was when it comes to like check raise honesty, but the street that somebody's honest on is when their cbet suddenly drops to a very low percentage, somewhere 40% or lower, or their fold to cbet is higher than 50 to 60%, you know, but then you want to see a dip or you want to see a difference. So for example, right here, we see, oh no, I'm going to steal if it comes to me because he's such a nitty player. Oh no. This player right here, I'm your friend, folds to flop cbet 39%, on the turn 68%. So he folds much more on the turn, so he's a turn honest player. I definitely want to keep that in mind. If I'm thinking about bluffing on the flop, I have to be prepared to double barrel bluff because I should expect him to call 40% of the time, more than half of the time. 40% he folds, so more than half of the time he's calling. I should expect to call when I'm c-betting against this player. So because of that, if I'm doing it as a bluff, I should be prepared to double barrel. Now, if I make the bluff on the flop and the turn card comes, makes the board scarier or whatever, makes it more dangerous for me and it helps his range, then I shouldn't double barrel, right? But if it's like a non-eventful card, if I felt like c-betting on a queen 10-8 board and the turn comes a deuce, it's not like he has pocket deuces, it's possible, but I shouldn't be scared of that, so I should barrel on that deuce. But on a queen 8-10, if the turn comes a jack or a 9, that gives him a lot of two pairs, completes some draws. Even if he had if it comes a 9 and he had pocket 9s, now he has a set of 9s plus the gut shot. So I wouldn't want to double barrel that, you know. But that's basically what street are they honest on. It was this player up here. He is not honest versus c-bets at all, flop or turn, and slightly honest against river bets. That's why I had to bet that river with that 6-4 of diamonds on the king, queen, jack board, you know. Had to make that bet right there. Yep. All right. So we covered everything on the list right here. It's been 43 minutes. Wow, a little bit longer than I had intended, but thank you very much. If you're still around, thank you very much for sticking around. We'll sit out the next big blind on these two hands, and let's see what we can maybe learn from showdowns. Oh, here's a showdown hand. Overbetting the river. Well, we don't get to learn what happened there, but let's see how that hand played out. Hidden Shadow was the one. In the blind, called pre-flop. Check call $1 right there. Check, check. He could have flopped something really good when he just check called that, and he was hoping to check raise or check call. Decided to overbet, possibly. We don't know for sure, but this could be an overbet for value on the river, or an overbet bluff as well. If we want to learn more, we can pull him up in our Poker Tracker 4 database and look at his showdown hands to see if we can't find other river overbetting spots to see what he had. But that could have been like a desperate last-minute attempt to gain a lot of value when he missed out on turn value. Could have been. And then yeah, we just know he folded. I mean, he could have been open-ended on the flop when he c-bet. Could just had pocket tens as straight bluff and was just going to give up after that point. Whatever. Yeah. You can try to learn what you can from showdowns. Not showdowns, I'm sorry, from hands that hit the river without showdown. But as you can see, we can't pull too much away from that, but it does give us an idea of how we can look more into hidden shadow. Oh. Is that a 7? You're trying to look bluffy? Wow, or what was his short stack? Oh, he only had 587. Okay, you were trying to look bluffy. You had a 7, or maybe just an 8, but you were hoping he would call. Oh, crap. Didn't mean to sit in. Dagnabbit. I meant to leave. Got a couple more hands right here. Let's see if we can't make some good decisions. Interesting. So he went from a 7-5 player, super nitty, to now a 12-11. So he sat at the table for a while. He started opening up his range. 560 on that board. Man, I ain't calling with anything less than a flush if I were you. Could be a bluff. We just don't know enough. It's only been 66 hands, but he's looking pretty tight aggressive. Tight aggressive players, for the most part, they normally don't. They normally don't bluff big like that, especially on a scary board. I think with a value hand with a full house right there, he should have bet smaller just to try to get something out of his opponent. You think about 3-betting? Oh, that works too. I don't mind folds. And I don't mind isolating the loose aggressive in the big blind as well. Man, he might be on like 5 tables at a time or something. I mean, he takes a long time with a lot of his decisions. He doesn't fold that often, but I do have the pair plus the draw, the backdoor draw plus the gut shot. I'm sorry, 2 backdoor draws, the flush and the straight. Oh, I got trips now. This is really good, actually. He called me on that. Doesn't like to fold. Maybe he has a weak king. I've got to bet an amount that a weak king can call. 80 cents. 8 big blinds, 2/3 pot. I think he can call with a weak king. King 9, call. Don't fold. King 9, call. So this is a great opportunity, to ask that question, how can I get the most value? And I really think he called that flop. 10s could have called right there. Weak kings could have called. Maybe he just had like a queen 9 for a gut shot and didn't want to call 2 streets. So I think that 80-cent bet, any king would have called from this guy. I really think so. So I think I got value there. A lot of 10s could have called the 80 cents. If I wanted to get 10s to call, I probably would have had to make it 70 or 60 cents. So I was trying to get some max value there. At least I got 1 street of value on that one. All right, we're in the big blind the next hand. So this is it. This ends the session. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Once again, play some focus sessions, print these out, and think about them as you play. Or, whatever. What's my session focus? Just choose 1 question per session. Like some of them, like I said earlier, that value question, you might not be able to ask yourself that too many times, but it might be something worth focusing on for you, you know? Alrighty, thank you very much again for that Patreon support. I do appreciate it, and I will catch you on the flip side.